3 days later, on the 15th of July, we headed into this bay. We found out later on it was called Millen Bay. Beautiful bay. Could have held all of the British fleet. Palm trees down to the water's edge. We found out later on that it was swamp. I've got a description here of Millen Bay. It said it's a narrow coastal strip of dripping mangrove swamp. Heat, mud, slush, torrential rain, mosquitoes, leeches, dense undergrowth. Anything that had wings on and that bit you and ate you, it was there.
So your role was really to be in the workforce, to set up the establishment rather than to be in the thick of fighting?
That's right. We hadn't done any jungle training whatsoever. Now, I remember the first night we landed there, we slept under the coconut trees. One of the fellows got hit on the head with a coconut.
It actually killed him, didn't it?
Yes. We learned not to sleep under a coconut tree after that. Lesson number 1. We eventually all got malaria, and about a week later we were told to roll down our sleeves of a night time and put on long trousers, and then of a morning we'd line up and they'd give us a teaspoon of raw quinine.
Did you feel like you were in a war zone?
No, well, it was just work, unloading the ships as they came in and building non-existent roads. No training whatsoever. But we're very fortunate that in the middle of August we had an AIF brigade sent over from Australia, the 18th Brigade. And this brigade was recognised as one of the best brigades in the AIF. On the 26th of August, 2 o'clock in the morning, the Japanese landed. They were supposed to land at Gilly Wharf.
That's where you were?
Mm-hmm. And if they'd landed there, they'd have split us clear out the middle. You wouldn't be here today, I wouldn't be here today. Australia would have been under foreign domination because the idea of the Japanese, they wanted Port Moresby. There wouldn't have been any Kokoda track or anything of that nature. The Japanese landed in amongst our sister battalion, the 61st, and this battalion put up a tremendous fight. The Japanese then did all sorts of things to our 61st battalion, the wounded men. They committed atrocities on them that was reported later on the Justice Webb report. They started then to make their way towards number 1 strip, which was their objective. That was the strip that we'd built. It ran the full battle. We ran about 14 to 16 days. The real battle only lasted about 10. 5 o'clock, here we are, no jungle training, nothing at all, and then we were told to go. How would you feel? Here the Japanese coming towards us, and we were wet around the ears everywhere, not only from the rain, but here we are going towards each other. Japanese coming up and we're going down. You just felt numb, and you didn't know what was going to happen. Rain, dark, mosquitoes, everything. Japanese, everything against you. Well, we just went. You never ever let your mate down. Anyway, at about 10 o'clock that night, we met the Japanese, and that's when the shooting started. And that's when we grew from a boy to a man in about 5 minutes. I was only a Lance Corporal, and the Corporal got knocked out in the first 5 minutes. And the grenade lobbed between the Corporal and myself, and he got most of it. He spent 9 months in the Warwick Hospital with shrapnel right through his legs. He got most of the blast, I only got a little bit, and that left us with about 8 men. And of course the Japanese, when we learned out later on, and if you had stripes on or pips or any sign of authority, you were the first to go. Or if you had an automatic weapon, you were the first to be shot. And a mate of mine, Scotty, came from Irongate. He had the Brin gun at the time, and he lost 3 fingers. He shot out of his hands. But everything went quiet all of a sudden. We didn't know what was going on. It was just confusion. So I said I'd go back and try to find out what was going on. Crawled back, found a mate of mine there had been killed. He was dead. Crawled back a bit further, and I heard all the jabbering. The Japanese had got right in behind us. We were completely surrounded. The only part we had that was open was I suppose about 40 or 50 yards of the sea. Anyway, we decided then we couldn't take our mate with us. We had to leave him there. He was dead. we decided to crawl back to out of the sea, and that's how we got back to our company. We sort of held them there a little bit. As we pushed back up, this is where we found their mate tied to a coconut tree and used for bayonet practice, even though he was dead. And we found out later on that's how they blooded their young officers. We never had any mercy on them after seeing your mate treated like that. Millen Bay was just confusion after confusion. I think it was about the second or third night, General Clowes sent the 2nd 10th Battalion in through us, and they called us all the chocos under the sun. We'll fix these Japs, and they were very confident. Just come back from Tobruk, went through us about 8 o'clock. About 10 o'clock that night, we could hear them hit the Japanese, and we thought, oh good, we'll have a bit of a rest. You couldn't lie on the ground or anything like that because it was all swamp. You're up over your ankles in swamp all the time, rain all the time, wet all the time. 2 o'clock in the morning, we heard the shots coming closer and closer. And this is where the 2nd 10th was split up by the Japanese landing 2 tanks. They split up the 2nd 10th, an experienced AIF battalion. Just a lot of them took to the hills, and we were shooting half Japanese and half 2nd 10th fellows that night. It was confusion. How we won that battle, I don't know.
So you killed a lot of your own guys?
Yeah, I'd say we would have, because they were coming in behind them, and there were Japanese behind them, and we started back, and this is when our RSM, our Regimental Sergeant Major, came out of the jungle with 2 pistols. Where he got them from, I don't know. He was a British soldier in the First World War. He wanted to know where we were going. We said we were getting out of this place, and there must have been about 40 or 50 of us of the company left. He said, follow me. He said, the first one that moves back, he said, oh, shoot him. And he put us in a bit of a clearing that we'd made, and he lined us up about 8 in line, and he said, as one fellow gets killed, you move up like that. The Japanese slung straight into us, and unbeknown to us, firing down this clearing was one of our Vickers machine guns. They didn't know we were down at the bottom end, and so when the Japanese came into it, they opened up, and we weren't game to raise our heads 6 inches above our shoulders because we were getting bullets through our haversacks and our back. This was the second time I was left behind. They got orders to withdraw then, and there was myself, I was a Lance Corporal, and another Lance Corporal, and private were designated to cover their withdrawal. We decided to go back, and we'd taken a wrong turn, and we'd ended up right up at the top of the drum, and we started to cross it, and we got a trot out, and don't move. The Americans had set mines. We were right in the middle of a minefield. So this is the second time I was classed as missing, believed, killed. Anyway, we eventually got back to the battalion, and they lined us up against this trip, and this is when the Japanese came to it. They thought that they'd got it. All that night they tried to cross, and it was the militia that stopped them there. Didn't beat them, but we stopped them. At 2 o'clock in the morning, or 3 o'clock, the bugle call sounded the retreat, and this is where our General Clowes sent in the 2nd 9th Battalion to follow through, and this is where Corporal John French won the Victoria Cross. And from that period of time onward, the Japanese started to withdraw, and the other battalion, the 2nd Floor, was used in the mopping up. These men of the 18th Brigade, well, nothing stopped them. They just kept going, as they proved later on when they were pushed into the Battle of Buna and going to beachheads. They lost a lot of men there. And guess who they called for there? 25th Battalion, the militia, the Chocos. Because they found out that we could fight every bit as good as what they could. Anyway, that was their very first defeat of the Japanese on land in the Southwest Pacific area. Our battalion made history. We were very proud of that, but we lost, I think, about 370, I think, were wounded and killed, but the Japanese lost about 700 odd. And these were their picked naval landing force.